Hi friends, I'm back with more of the BFG, and today's chapter is called Journey to Dream Country. After the mad frobscottle party was over, Sophie settled herself again on top of the enormous table. "You's feelin' better now?" asked the BFG. "Much better, thank you," Sophie said. "Whenever I's feelin' a bit scrotty," the BFG said, "a few gallops of frobscottle is always making me hopscotchy again." "I must say it's quite an experience," Sophie said. "It's a raz-twizzler," the BFG said. "It's glorumptuous." He turned away and strode across the cave and picked up his dream-catching net. "I's gallopin' off now," he said, "to catch some more wopsy-whifflin' dreams for my collection. I's doin' this every day without missin'. Is you wishin' to come with me?" "Well, not me, thank you very much," Sophie said. "Not with those other giants lurking outside." "I's snugglin' you very close into my pocket, of course," the BFG said. "Then no one is seein' you." Before Sophie could protest, he had picked her up off the table and popped her into his waistcoat pocket. There was plenty of room in there. "Is you wishin' for a little peephole to look out from?" he asked. "There's one here already," she said. She had found a small hole in the pocket, and when she put one eye close to it, she could see out very well indeed. She watched the BFG as he bent down and filled his suitcase with empty glass jars. He closed the lid, picked up the suitcase in one hand, took the pole with the net in the other, and marched toward the entrance of the cave. As soon as he was outside, the BFG set off across the great, hot, yellow wasteland where the blue rocks lay and the dead trees stood, and where all the other giants were skulking about. Sophie, squatting low on her heels in the pocket of the leather waistcoat, had one eye glued to the little hole. She saw the group of enormous giants about 300 yards ahead. "Hold your breaths," the BFG whispered down to her. "Cross your figglers, here we go." "We's goin' right past all these other giants. Is you seein' that whoppin' great one, the one nearest to us?" "I see him," Sophie whispered back, quivering. "That is the horriblest of them all, and the biggest of them all. He's called the flesh-lump-eating giant." "I don't want to hear about him," Sophie said. "He is 54 feet high," the BFG said softly as he jogged along, "and he is swallopin' human beings like they's sugar lumps, 2 or 3 at a time." "You're making me nervous," Sophie said. "I's nervous myself," the BFG whispered. "I always gets as jumpsy as a jog hopper when the flesh-lump-eating giant is around." "Keep away from him," Sophie pleaded. "Not possible," the BFG answered. "He's galloping easily 2 times as quickly as me." "Shall we turn back?" Sophie said. "Turning back is worse," the BFG said. "If they see me running away, they is all giving chase and throwing rocks." "They would never really eat you, though, would they?" Sophie asked. "Well, giants is never guzzling other giants," the BFG said. "They is fighting and squirreling a lot with each other, but never guzzling. Human beings is more tasty to them." The giants had already spotted the BFG, and all heads were turned, watching him as he jogged forward. He was aiming to pass well to the right of the group. Through her little peephole, Sophie saw the flesh-lump-eating giant moving over to intercept them. He didn't hurry. He just hopped over casually to a point where the BFG would have to pass. The others loped after him. Sophie counted 9 of them altogether, and she recognized the blood bottler in the middle of them. They were bored. They had nothing to do until nightfall. There was an air of menace about them as they loped slowly across the plain with long, lolloping strides, heading for the BFG. "Here comes the runty one," boomed Flesh Lump Eater. "Ho-ho, there's runty one. Where's you splotch swinklin' away to in such a hefty hurry?" He shot out an enormous arm and grabbed the BFG by the hair. The BFG didn't struggle. He simply stopped and stood quite still and said, "Be so kind as to be lettin' go of my hair, Flesh Lump Eater." The Flesh Lump Eater released him and stepped back a pace. The other giants stood around, waiting for the fun to start. Now then, you little grob squiffler, boomed the flesh lump eater. We is all of us wantin' to know where you's gallopin' off to every day in the daytime. Nobody ought to be gallopin' off to anywhere until it's gettin' dark. The human beings could easily be spottin' you and startin' a giant hunt, and we's not wantin' that to happen, is we not? We is not, shouted the other giants. Go back to your cave, runty one. I is not gallopin' to any human being country, the BFG said. I's goin' to other places. I is thinkin', said the flesh lump eater, that you is catchin' human beings and keepin' them as pets. Right you is, cried the blood bottler. Just now I's hearin' some chitterin' away to one of them in his cave. You is welcome to go and search my cave from frack to bunt, the BFG answered. You can go lookin' into every crook and nanny. There's no human beans, or stringy beans, or runner beans, or jelly beans, or any other beans in there. Sophie crouched still as a mouse inside the BFG's pocket. She hardly dared breathe. She was terrified. She might sneeze. The slightest sound or movement would give her away. Through the tiny peephole, she watched the giants clustering around the poor BFG. How revolting they were, all of them. Had piggy little eyes and enormous mouths and thick sausage lips. When the flesh lump eater was speaking, she got a glimpse of his tongue. It was jet black, like a slab of black steak. Every one of them more than twice as tall as the BFG. Suddenly, the flesh lump eater shot out two enormous hands and grabbed the BFG around the waist. He tossed him high into the air and shouted, "Catch him, man-hugger!" The man-hugger caught him. The other giants spread out quickly in a large circle, each giant about 20 yards from his neighbor, preparing for the game they were going to play. Now the man-hugger threw the BFG high and far, shouting, "Catch him, bone cruncher!" The bone cruncher ran forward and caught the trembling BFG and immediately swung him up again. "Catch him, child chewer!" he shouted. And so it went on. The giants were playing ball with the BFG, vying with each other to see who could throw him the highest. Sophie dug her nails into the sides of the pocket, trying to prevent herself from tumbling out when she was upside down. She felt as though she were in a barrel rolling over Niagara Falls, and all the time there was a fearful danger that one of the giants would fail to catch the BFG, and he would go crashing to the ground. "Catch him, meat dripper! Catch him, gizzard gulper! Catch him, maid masher! Catch him, blood bottler! Catch him, catch him, catch him!" In the end, they got bored of their game. They dumped the poor BFG on the ground. He then dazed and stuttered. They gave him a few kicks and shouted, "Run, you little runt! Let us be seeing how fast you's gallopin'." The BFG ran. What else could he do? The giants picked up rocks and hurled them after him. He managed to dodge them. "Ratty little runt," they shouted. "Troggy little twit. Shriveled little shrimp. Mucky little midget." There you can see the giants not being so kind to the BFG. "Squaggy little squib. Grobby little grub." At last the BFG got clear of them all, and in another couple of minutes, the pack of giants was out of sight over the horizon. Sophie popped her head up from the pocket. "I didn't like that," she said. "Phew," said the BFG. "Few and far between. They was in a nasty mood today. Was they not? I's sorry you's having such a whirligig time." "No worse than you," Sophie said. "Would they ever really hurt you?" "I isn't ever trusting them," the BFG said. "How do they actually catch the humans they eat?" Sophie asked. "They's usually just sticking an arm in through the bedroom window and snitching them from their beds," the BFG said. "Like you did to me." "Ah, but I isn't eating you," the BFG said. "How else do they catch them?" Sophie asked. "Sometimes," the BFG said, "they is swimmelin' in from the sea like fishes. with only their heads showing above the water, and then out comes a big hairy hand and grabbles someone off the beach. Children as well, often chidlers, the BFG said, little chidlers who is building sandcastles on the beach. That is who the swimmeling ones are after. Little chidlers is not so tough to eat as old grandmama, so says the child chewing giant. As they talked, the BFG was galloping fast over the land. Sophie was standing right up in his waistcoat pocket now and holding on to the edge with both hands. Her head and shoulders were in the open and the wind was blowing in her hair. How else do they catch people, she asked. All of them is having their own special way of catching the human being, the BFG said. The meat-dripping giant is preferring to pretend like he's a big tree growing in the park. He's standing in the park in the dusky evening, and he is holding great big branches over his head. And there he's waiting until some happy families is coming to have a picnic under the spreading tree. The meat-dripping giant is watching them as they lay out their little picnic, but in the end, it is Meat Dripper who is having the picnic. Oh, it's too awful, Sophie cried. The gizzard-gulping giant is a city lover, the BFG went on. The gizzard-gulper is lying high up between the roofs of the houses in the big cities. He's lying there, snuggy as a sniggler, and watching the human beings walking on the streets below. And when he sees one that looks like it's a wopsy good flavor, he grabs it. He is simply reaching down and snitching it off the street like a monkey taking a nut. He says it is nice to be able to pick and choose what you's having for supper. He says it's like choosing from a menu. Don't people see him doing it? Sophie asked. Never is they seeing him. Do not forget it is dusky dark at this time. Also, the gizzard gulper has a very fast arm. His arm is going up and down quicker than Squinker's. But if all these people are disappearing every night, surely there's some sort of outcry, Sophie said. The world is a whopsin' big place, the BFG said. It is 100 different countries. The giants is clever. They's careful not to be skittling off at the same country too often. They's always switch-folding around. Even so, Sophie said. Do not forget, the BFG said, that human beings is disappearing everywhere, all the time, even without the giants guzzling them up. Human beings is often not being so kind to each other, and is quicker at doing it than giants is. But they don't eat each other, Sophie said. Giants isn't eating each other either, the BFG said, nor is giants killing each other. Giants is not very lovely, but they's not killing each other. Nor is crocodile-dillies killing other crocodile-dillies. Nor is kitty cats killing kitty cats. Well, they kill mice, Sophie said. Ah, but they's not killing their own kind, the BFG said. Human beings is the only animal doing unkind things. Don't poisonous snakes kill each other? Sophie asked. She was searching desperately for another creature that behaved as badly as a human. Even poisonous snakes is never killing each other, the BFG said. Nor is the most fearsome creature like tigers or rhinoceroses. None of them is ever doing that to their own kind. Have you ever thought about that? Sophie kept silent. I's not understanding human beings at all, the BFG said. You's a human being, and you is saying it is grisling and horrific for giants to be eating human beings, right or left? Right, Sophie said. But human beings is squishing each other all the time, the BFG said. He was right. Of course he was right, and Sophie knew it. She was beginning to wonder whether humans were actually any better than giants. Even so, she said, defending her own, I think it's rotten and foul that giants should go off every night to eat humans. Humans have never done them any harm. That is what the little piggy-wig is saying every day, the BFG answered. He is saying, I's never done any harm to the human being, so why should he be eating me? Oh dear, Sophie said. The human beings is making rules to suit themselves, the BFG went on. But the rule they is making do not suit the little piggy-wiggies. Am I right or left? Right, Sophie said. Giants is also making rules. Their rules is not suiting the human beings. Everybody is making own rules to suit himself. But you don't like it that those beastly giants are eating humans every night, do you? Sophie asked. I do not, the BFG answered firmly. One right is not making two lefts. Is you quite cozy down there in my pocket? I'm fine, Sophie said. Then suddenly, once again, the BFG went into the magical top gear of his. He began hurling forward with phenomenal leaps. His speed was unbelievable. The landscape became blurred, and again, Sophie had to duck down to get out of the whistling winds to save her head from being blown off her shoulders. She crouched in the pocket and listened to the wind screaming past. It came swiftly in through the tiny peephole in the pocket and whooshed around like a hurricane. But this time the BFG didn't stay in top gear long. It seemed as though he had some barrier to cross, a vast mountain perhaps, or an ocean or a desert. But having crossed it, he once again slowed down to his normal gallop, and Sophie was able to pop her head up and look out once more at the view. She noticed immediately that they were now in an altogether paler country. The sun had disappeared above a film of vapor. The air was becoming cooler every minute. The land was flat and treeless, and there seemed to be no color in it at all. Every minute the mist became thicker, the air became colder still, and everything became paler, and paler until soon there was nothing but gray and white all around. They were in a country of swirling mists and ghostly vapors. There was some sort of grass underfoot, but it was not green. It was grayish. There was no sign of living creatures and no sound at all, except for the soft thud of the BFG's footsteps as he hurled on through the fog. Suddenly he stopped. "We's here at last," he announced. He bent down and lifted Sophie from his pocket and put her on the ground. She was still in her nightie, and her feet were bare. She shivered and stared around. Around her, she saw swirling mists and ghostly vapors. "Where are we?" she asked. "We is in dream country," the BFG said. "This is where all dreams is beginning." And that is the end of the chapter. And so our next chapter is dream catching. So now that the BFG has made it to dream country, we're going to get to see or hear how he goes about catching all those dreams that he collects. So I hope you enjoyed that chapter, friends, and I'll be back with you real soon with another from the BFG. All right, take care.